Okay, we are continuing Halacha Beis, and the Rama had said, we had mentioned the Rama last time, the Rama said that the way you make Gevinas Yisroel, the way you make something cheese to be kosher is you have to watch the making it. Okay, that's what the Rama says how you make it. And we've mentioned in passing that, we've mentioned this Rama a few times, but we mentioned in passing that the Shach argues. Okay, and the Shach holds that the way you make something to Gevinas Yisroel is either the Yid participates in making the Gevina, like throwing in the rennet, or the other part is the Yid owns the cheese. If the Yid owns the cheese or participates, those are the two ways he holds you make Gevinas Yisroel. So today we're going to talk about what's behind those two shittas, where they come from, those two shittas, and understanding of what they hold, and some of their rayas to what they think. So that, and then in Mitzvah, the next time we're going to talk about some of the nafkaminas and some of the practical shaylas within each one of those shittas. Okay, we're going to be a little bit removed from practical shaylas today. Next time it's going to be more the practical. Now that we understand that the Rama holds X, then how does that play itself out into a bunch of practical applications?
So we're not going to speak about specific companies today.
No. But next time we'll talk about...
I don't know where this tape ends up. So.
That's okay. You can talk. It's okay. Next time we'll talk about... Next time Mitzvah about different applications within each of those shittas. Many different channels within the shittas and which shittas we pass on.
Applications in terms of how we go about that with CRC certifications.
Right. So we'll talk about it. We'll do it. And then we have to talk about also which way we pass on also. Today we're just going to talk about these two shittas. Next time also will be part of how we pass on also. Okay.
You said the Rama and you said
the Shach.
What about the Machab?
The Shulchan says nothing.
Oh. Hey, what is that?
Good question. We'll get to that. Hopefully. We'll pass that. Okay. Hopefully we'll talk about it. Okay. So the first thing to understand, the first, we really have to see two Marmukayim to understand. The first one is the Sefer Aguda. That's up here on the screen. Okay. The first thing to understand is Sefer Aguda. I'm going to ask you to pause for 1 second before you look at that Sefer Aguda. The document Moshe brings. You can tell that.
That's my mother.
Okay. The document Moshe says, the Mordechai says, he brings from the Mordechai that a Yid watching the making of the cheese does not create Gevinas Yisroel. Okay, that's the first thing he brings. The Mordechai says it does not create Gevinas Yisroel. He says, but if you look in Sefer Aguda, you'll see that it does. We'll read Sefer Aguda in a second. And the minhag is like that. Okay, what does Sefer Aguda say? He says, Hitiru hagdolom adam hakohen aser Gevinas Yisroel macher. A Yid, the Chacham will mark in the following case. A Yid owned a certain amount of cheeses, and the goy misaknim b'Shabbos, v'yisrael roy v'shomer. The guy is making the cheese on Shabbos. So obviously a Yid's not going to make cheese on Shabbos, but the guy is making the cheese on Shabbos, and the Yid is watching him. He's not saying anything. He's just watching what's going on. After he ends off that it's mechur to do such a thing. So the Aguda says the Yid's watching him make the cheese. Mechur means disgusting, like revolting. The mechur is for the Shabbos. Mechur is for the Shabbos. It's for the Shabbos. For the Shabbos that the Yid should be participating, watching what's going on. So the Sefer Aguda says that it's that you can make it. So the Rama says, the document says, you see from here that if the Yid watches making the cheese, that makes it into Gevinas Yisroel. Okay, so we're gonna distract ourselves for a second. Just look at the Hilchos Shabbos for 1 second. Okay, the Ramos, as you pointed out, it says is mechur. That means any of the Hilchos Shabbos of it. When you look in Hilchos Shabbos, this Aguda is brought here, but it's also brought in Hilchos Shabbos in Sim Shin Zayin. The Rama brings it over there. The Rama doesn't mean the mechur part of it. And the Rama says the Yidden who used to go with the Goysha farmers, they spend months with them out in the fields, and they would, when it came weekday, of course they watched them make the cheese, but even on Shabbos they would watch them make the cheese. There's no problem. He doesn't say anything about mechur, and he says, why isn't it's an Amir Lakum, or it's Mimtzah Cheftecha, why isn't it also to do that? So he says, because the guy's making his cheese anyhow. So it's the fact that he's making it for the Yid doesn't make a difference. Even he's making it for the Yid. The Yid is watching the cheese to make sure it's kosher, and he wants to buy it afterwards, but that's not a problem. That's not considered Amir Lakum or Mimtzah Cheftecha. It's okay. It's completely mutter.
The ingredients are the same ingredients.
It's just milk, right? They're making cheese.
Well, the starter, whatever it might be, is all certified kosher. There's
correct.
No issues. The only issue is the Shabbos.
The Hilchos Shabbos, right?
So if the Jew wasn't there, the guy would make the same cheese, and it would just production line to not production, but the service line to wherever it's going would just be in a different direction. That's the only.
That's exactly what Rama is saying, and therefore it's not. You're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing. You're not telling the guy doing. The guy would make like you said, make his cheese anyhow.
Even though he's working for the Jewish company.
Even though he's working for the Yid.
Mr. Mustami is a cobbler of some sort.
Okay, so now there is a question.
It could be the guy owns the cheese. He wants to sell it as kosher. I mean, you have to know.
No, this case we're talking about.
Could be the kid in the back and could give a token. The poet made it for himself. He's going to sell it. The Yid is just watching in order so the poet will sell it to the Yid.
It doesn't sound like that. That the good doesn't say that the Yid bought the cheese. He bought it. He bought the cheese.
Right now, he's doing it for himself because he wants to sell it.
Okay, so we can talk about that. The Rama brings in there that you should. There's a question on the Rama. The Rama says in Rema and Shach, he says that if a guy is doing work for a Yid, okay, he's doing work for the Yid is not allowed to stand by and watch him do the work on Shabbos. The Rama says that you're not allowed to watch it. It's also to do that. So why does Rama say we're a little off Gevinas Yisroel for a second? Why does Rama say
because there, let's say, instruction, they can tell that you're going to tell what the cheese making is just. You're not involved with the cheese making.
Very good. Very close. The Taz says that over there the only thing that's also is if you're the manager. Okay, this is your stuff. You overseeing what's going on. That's you're not allowed to be overseeing what he does. He says, but if Taz says, what would be if you were just watching to make sure he doesn't steal anything? You just make sure he doesn't steal any supplies. That's okay. The Taz says you're allowed to do that. So, presumably, making cheese is like making sure he doesn't steal supplies. You're just watching that he doesn't do anything wrong.
You're also watching to make sure it'll be kosher, because if you're not watching, it's not going to be kosher.
Right, no, but so that's similar to making sure he doesn't steal. As opposed to, you could have understood that's like overseeing him as the manager, because you are watching. But okay, so you could have read both ways. Ramah in Shin Zayin says that it's mutter. Right, so he's understanding that as long as it's you could have understood differently. And all of what we just talked about goes into what the Agudah says, that it's Mukhur. Okay? The Ramah doesn't bring the Mukhur part of it. All that goes into these Hilchos Shabbos questions go into the Mukhur part of it. Okay. Anyhow, back to
we wanted to give a hashkacha, so then we would take into account.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it. No, we wouldn't. Well, that's going to be for next time.
Well,
that's all for next time. Okay, next time is whether we should give hashkacha. Okay. No. That next time. Yeah, that next time. So back to cheese. The Gevinas Yisroel. So the Ramah looks at the Sefer Agudah. The Sefer Agudah says if you watch making the cheese, it's kosher. The Ramah says the minhag is. He says it here in Yodeh. He says it in Aruch also. The minhag is to do this. Obviously, this is what people did. They watched the guy make cheese on Shabbos, and it was kosher. So he says, you see, the minhag is that to make Gevinas Yisroel. What does it take to do to make Gevinas Yisroel? You watch the guy. If you watch him, it makes Gevinas Yisroel. So even though he brought the Mordechai says it's not like that, the Ramah himself, the documentary brought himself that the Mordechai says it's not like that. As well, the minhag is to do like that, and that's what you could do. That's how you make Gevinas Yisroel.
Didn't you just say something about the Mordechai?
It's going to be for next time. We'll pass it right now. That's for next time. Okay. That's what the Rama holds. Okay, the Shach disagrees. Okay, there's a long Shach over here. He says, no, he doesn't believe it. He doesn't agree with it. He said the Rama is reading, the document is reading that good the wrong. He says, did you notice that the Sefer Agudah is not in Masechtas Avodah Zarah? He says it's at the very end of Masechtas Shabbos. He says, what's it doing in Masechtas Shabbos? He says, because he's not talking about how to make kosher cheese. The whole this Agudah is completely about Hilchos Shabbos, about whether you're allowed to watch it or not. Okay? He says, he's only talking about the mutter also. He says, that even the Agudah agrees that watching it is not enough. He says, no, Asma, what is he talking about? Rashach says, you think he's going to write something in Hilchos Shabbos and ignore the fact that the cheese is treif? The Yid is buying the cheese. He says, the Yid is going to buy the cheese. You think he's ignoring it?
If he's forming it and stuff and getting it in packaging and stuff.
Who's getting packaging?
Maybe the one he's saying, I'm kind of sort of Gevinos, so you go, I've got Misaknim b'Shabbos. He's forming it. It doesn't say he's making it.
Okay, it's hard.
It's Misaknim b'Shabbos.
Okay, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that that's what that Agudah means. Misaknim means he's making cheese. He's doing everything it takes to make it. Okay. So the Shach gives three possible answers for what that Agudah means. He says he doesn't mean to say that's how you make cheese. He says either. He says maybe the guy is selling the cheese to other guy. Okay, and the Yid is just watching the cheese, not to make it kosher cheese. He's a job. Okay, he's just standing there. This is not has nothing to do with Kashrus. That's a good question, and that has to do with the Mechor part of it. But it's all a Hilchos Shabbos question. It has nothing to do. He's not trying to make kosher cheese.
is going on a goy?
No.
That's a good question. No.
I think
the Yid is going to be buying the cheese from the guy to sell to other guys. He's a wholesaler.
He already bought the cheese. He says,
Right,
no, but the Shach says he's not trying to buy kosher cheese. He's trying to buy this cheese to sell. So why is he saying that? Because it's a business. He wants to make sure his cheese is made good.
No,
He wants to make sure the guy does a good job.
Milk, a good culture, and a good.
Right, exactly.
He's not holding a manager position and not like this.
That's a good question. So the Aguda says it's mechur. Okay, the good Taka says that it's mechur to do it. It's a good question. Okay, there's one answer. Next, he says maybe the Aguda, he brings rice. He says maybe the Aguda holds a Gevinas Tam. That nowadays there's no way to Gevinas Akum in the first place. Okay, we talked about that last time. That there's some Rishonim hold there's no way to Gevinas Akum nowadays altogether. That was last time. Okay, maybe all like that. And it's third.
Said that the first time.
No, the first teretz was to say that he's on with the Goyim. Say like you say. Okay.
That this constitutes Gevinas Yisroel, but you don't need Gevinas Yisroel.
Right, you don't need it minadin, or you don't need it because he's on with the Goyim. That's true. Those answer the same. The third answer is the answer that the Shach seems to hold like the most. And we'll talk more about this in a second. He says, did you see at the beginning, the Aguda says that the Yid bought the cheese? He says, you know why it says that the Yid bought the cheese? Which seems like just like a nice story, but the reason why he's telling it to you is because when a Yid owns cheese, that also makes it Gevinas Yisroel. That's what the Shach, we'll talk more about this in a second. The Shach holds, if the Yid owns the cheese, that's Gevinas Yisroel. So the reason why it's kosher is not because the Yid's watching it. The reason why it's kosher is because of the beginning of the story, that the Yid bought the cheese. He has a deal to buy, he bought or has a deal to buy the cheese. We'll talk about it more in a second. So the reason why it's kosher is not because the Yid watched the cheese, it's kosher because the Yid owns the cheese. So the Rama, he says, Rama, you're reading it all wrong. This, I don't say anything about watching cheese makes it kosher.
So what's Raya B'Shemer?
So he's just, that, now, again, this is Hilchos Shabbos. This is Hilchos Shabbos.
You're doing
Like the Taz says, certain things you're allowed to do on Shabbos, certain things you're not allowed to. You're allowed to watch him from
Why
stealing.
is he there B'chal? He owns the cheese.
He's
Well, I'm not sure. Does it right?
But Raya B'Shemer is actually a little more than that.
He's watching to make sure it's done correctly. He wants to buy it. Right, he's a manufacturer. He's watching his stuff. Okay, so the Shach says he doesn't have a right from this. The Shach has sort of like three riots against the Rama. Okay, so he discounts this whole right. He says this is not a right. Okay, he says first of all he says like this. You remember the Shulchan Aruch said that if you have Gevina made by a guy, even if we know that he used kosher rennet, it's still not kosher. It's a lead plug. It's kosher even if we know that he used it. So the Shach says, well, even if we know that he used it, that's the same thing as watching him. When we watch the guy make cheese, we know that he used kosher rennet. So this is what the Ramah is saying is part of the lead plug. The lead plug is, even if you know he uses kosher rennet, it's not kosher. So what does it help to watch the guy? If you watch him, so now you know that he used kosher rennet. But if you know he used kosher rennet, it's still treif. It only becomes kosher if something has to happen. So the Rosh Hashanah said so far, you have to own it. That's something, but the Chum Mumsakin. But to say that he should watch it, what will the point of watching it? Watching means you'll now know that he used kosher rennet. But the Mechaber says about filu, he moved about some asura. Even if he used kosher rennet, it's treif. That's one argument.
Even if he's watching it.
Well, watching is just a good way of knowing that he's using kosher rennet. That doesn't help.
So what do you have to? You have to put it in.
So the first thing the Shach said so far, is if you own it.
You own the rennet.
If you own it. Okay, and that leads into his second answer, owns the cheese. Okay, the Mishnayos, when the Mishnayos list off how you make, the Mishnayos in Avodah Zarah have all these different things that are usher, cheese and bread and bishul akum and Gevinas akum and cholav. So all these different things that are mutter and usher. When it comes to the din of cholav, it speaks out, makes a whole production. It says it 2 times. It says cholav that you didn't watch is usher, and cholav that you did watch is mutter. Okay, that is to say, in this long list of many things that are mutter and usher, there's only one of them that it says that watching makes it mutter usher. And the Mishnah makes a whole focus out of the fact that it says at first that it's usher if you don't watch it, and then it says it's mutter if you do watch it, as if to say, only for this thing does watching help. And that's where the takanah is, that watching helps. But for all the other things, this 10 things in the Mishnah, 20 things in the Mishnah of that are mutter usher, doesn't say watching by any of them. It's if to say that the point of watching only makes a difference for cholav, not for gvina or any of the other things like that. Okay? And last...
Wait, semen, right? There's semen, Kashrus of putting wine.
Right. No, so the Mishnah doesn't say what you do to make Shem kosher or not kosher. What? So you would guess that by Shemin, let's say by Shemin, what you do is you'd watch it, but why they call it that it's singular that, let's say not by Gevina, and not by the other one? Because, so you could read the other one, you could say, because Gevina is Pasha, it's like the other ones. Okay, I guess you could read it both ways. And lastly, he brings a whole number of poskim who say his way. Okay, the Shach brings a whole bunch of people who say his way, a bunch of early poskim who say his way, that watching is not enough. Okay. Now, the Shach then says he thinks that not only could you make it Gevinas Yisroel by participating, but by owning it also. And this is the answer this question, which is, he says, how come everybody calls this din Gevinas Yisroel or Gevinas Akum? Okay, why do they use that term to refer? They call this thing Gevinas Yisroel and Gevinas Akum is because that's what it is. If it's Gevina of an Akum, it's Aser. If it's Gevina of a Yisroel, then it's Mutter. In other words, whoever owns it, that's what makes it Mutter or Aser. The reason why the Mishnah only says Gevinas Sehen, their cheeses, or Gevinas Akum, or the Machaberu, so to speak, would only say Gevinas Akum is Aser and Gevinas Yisroel is Mutter, because that's what the defining characteristic is. If it's a Goyes, it's Aser. If it's Yiz, then it's Mutter. Okay, so he holds that that's sort of like the simple reading of what it says. You want to know how come the Shulchan Aruch didn't say that the way you make Gevinas is by a Yid doing this or that, the other thing, because he does. He said, a Gevina of a guy, Gevina so I think a Chacham or Aser. So that means, he's explained to you what you have to do. It means if it's of a Yid, then it's Mutter, and if it's of a guy, then it's Aser. That's the characteristic is, who owns it, that's what's important. Okay, that's how he reads that, that's how he's going to read the Mechaber, which is a fair question, and it's going to explain the Mishnayos also. Okay, how come the Mishnayos don't say anything, is because the Mishnayos are saying it, it's really subtle, but the Mishnayos are saying, by saying that if the Yid does it like this, or if the Yid owns it, that's what they mean. Okay, now, let's move on now, John. We have three ways we've said how you can make Gevinas Yisroel. The Ramah said you make it by watching it. The Shach said you could own it. Well, the Shach said you could participate in making it. Okay, let's think about it. Those make sense. According to the Ramah, the din is that you have to watch it. That means is the Chachamim were afraid you'd use Kevis Nevela, so they said watch it. And if you watch it, they won't use Kevis Nevela. Okay, we get that. We understand the logic to how that would work. The Shach, second Shach was that it's Gevinas Yisroel by the Yid owning it. That means is Chacham were afraid that they would use Kevis Nevela, so they said is it has to belong to a Yid. What did they mean by that? What did the Chacham mean when they said it belongs to a Yid? That means is if someone makes something for you, then they make it according to your specifications, or that you make it even using your ingredients sometimes. So if the guy is making the cheese for me, he's not going to use Kevis Nevela because he's making it for me. So it's not automatic that it's like that, but that's a certain setup that it's logical that if he's making it for me, he's going to follow my orders. So he's going to even I'm going to even hand him the rennet to make the cheese with, because he's making it for me. So therefore, there's a certain logic that Chacham would say is it has to be that Yid owns it.
Why is it stronger than milk? Milk is by watching it. So why didn't they make it clear that you have to own the milk in order that it shouldn't have to go ahead and that they're not going to switch it?
So you want to know why the Chacham?
Well, what's a svara that the Chacham by milk watching is enough that there was no outside thing here, but by cheese you have to own it in order that they wouldn't switch it. Just watch it,
I'm not sure what the answer is, but I know we've seen. We're going to mention it again in a second. We've seen the Chacham says, and others say that the Gzeir of Gevinas Akum is stronger than the Gzeir of Chol Yisroel, the Chol Akum. It's a stronger takanah. The Chacham had wanted you to do more to be sure that it was kosher than they did by Chol. By Chol, they let you get away with less than they did with Gevina.
Yeah, but you don't have to. If you own the cake, let's say you own the rennet, you have to be there also to watch what they put in that rennet.
We'll talk about that next time.
Because for that, if it's more money, they can go ahead and put in the other one and then keep the other one.
We'll talk about that. That's for next time. Okay. So
it's going to be a long show next
The
one.
milk and the cheese.
What did you say?
The difference between the milk and the cheese, isn't it that to own the milk, you have to own the cow?
Okay.
To own the cheese, all you have to do is own.
So you're saying it's easier to say own the cheese than it's to say own the milk?
Yeah.
Okay, that could be. Well, there we go, Ken. Good answer. Okay. So, but now in the Shach's other pshat that the Yid has to participate. How do we understand the takanah to say that the Yid has to participate? What does that mean, according to the Shach? The Yid participating means if I throw in the rennet, I'm going to make sure they throw in kosher rennet. That's the point. But the Shach himself said that knowing that they use kosher rennet is not good enough. That was his whole argument on the Ramah. Watching doesn't help because watching just lets you know that they're using kosher rennet. He says, so what is participating any better than watching it? The point, if the Chacham made a takanah, we can understand they would make a takanah, you have to own it. Why would they make a takanah that they have to participate? Now, you could just tell me, that's what the Chacham did. The Chacham just said, you have to participate. You could say that, the Chacham could have said you have to participate. But how does anybody know that? How do these Rishonim know? The Shach brought a bunch of it. How did they said that we know how they know that if a Yid owns it, it's good enough. They said, the Mishnah says, if it's a goy's cheese, it's also. So that's how they got it from. Where would they have seen in the Mishnah that if a Yid participates in making the cheese, it's kosher? Where does it say that? The Mishnah doesn't say anything about that. The Mishnah just says, a goy's cheese is also. Where does it say that if a Yid participates, it's mutter? So, to answer that, we have to go to our second thing, which is like this.
That guy's on the Ramah, right?
This is not a
No, you have to say anything on the Ramah. How do you know that the Yid sees it and makes it?
Why not? The chshak is a chshak, so you might put something treif. If you watch it, then it's kosher. It's like a cholov. It's exactly like cholov. Just like cholov, if you watch it, it's okay. So green, it's the same thing.
You don't
I
think
didn't
that?
say it before. You're just saying that's...
That's a logic. No, but we understand the logic of the Rama said. But the Shach said that knowing that it's kosher rented is not good enough. That's why you're arguing the Rama. So if that's not good enough, so who told you that participating is what does it? That just helps you know for sure. But where would it come from that there's that's the structure of the takanah that you have to participate? Okay. So the Shach brought in passing, one of his people who says like him is the Maram Rutenberg. And he tells you the truth is, I can't find it. Okay, I tried. I'm sure somebody else can find it. But this, what I'm about to say for the Maram Rutenberg, it's not in the Shach, but the Gemara brings it. This is what the Maram Rutenberg says. Okay, so I believe in what the Gemara says because I can't find it. Okay, the Maram Rutenberg says that the raya, that the makar for this shita that you could participating is good enough is from the Tosefta, and that is like this. The Mishnayos, as I told you, don't tell you how you make Gevinas Yisroel. It doesn't say it. It doesn't even say that there's such a thing as Gevinas Yisroel. It says Gevinas Akum is also. It doesn't say even that Gevinas Yisroel is mutter. And it doesn't tell you how to do it. And nor does the Gemara. Okay? The Gemara tells you how to make Bishul or Pas Yisroel. The Mishnah tells you how to make Chol Yisroel. The Gemara doesn't say anything about how to make Gevinas Yisroel. Okay? But this is what the Tosefta says.
Just didn't we at one time say? I don't know. I mean, I'm just that at one time. I think you said that at one time a guy's cheese was kosher.
Yes.
So I put this in perspective. I'm losing it somewhere. I don't know where I'm losing it.
Okay.
I lost you somewhere, and I'm not sure exactly what. I mean, I'm thinking about this thing from the past, and I'm lost. Where is this?
So at some point in history, the Chachamim said there's a small possibility they're going to use treif rennet, and therefore you shouldn't eat a guy's cheese anymore. Until then, it was basically everybody used kosher rennet, so you didn't have to worry so much about it. Right. Occasionally people would use it. It was a rare enough thing. You didn't have to worry about it. At some days, Chacham said, you know what? This is happening too often. Too much of a problem. From now on, you can only use it if you have Gevinas Yisroel. So there was a cutoff. There was some point where that happened.
Ram says a half Mishnah.
Well, Chafei Mishnah, it says in the Mishnah. So okay, fine. So what does the Tosefta say? The Tosefta says, Gevinas She'emidi Yisroel. If a Yid set the cheese, he doesn't even use that, he watched it, okay? He set the cheese. Even though the guy was involved in the work, okay, it means he's squeezing it and draining it and all the other work that's done, Harishim Teres, it's mutter, okay? So the Tosefta says,
that's adding the rennet, that's basically...
Right, that's what he says. The Tosefta says that if the Yid is, so the Mishnah didn't say how you make Gevinas Yisroel, but the Tosefta says, it says if the Yid makes the cheese, right, he had made the Yisroel, he threw in the rennet to make the cheese, then it's Gevinas Yisroel.
Seems like a video. I mean, is this l'chahari zoom in terrace? This
is the Mishnah. This is the Tosefta that lists off all these different foods that are mutter and asur. It says these are the ways that make it mutter. These are the ways that make it asur.
I don't know the rest of it. Just
no, so yeah, you can kasher over Shabbat. Okay. Okay. So that is to say like this. When the Shach thing goes on to say like this, if you look at the Tosefta, you see that there's a different order in the Tosefta than there is in the Mishnayos. Okay, this is the order of the halachas in the Tosefta. Okay, halacha hey and a drop in halacha zayin. Okay, in the Tosefta, the isurim go like this. It says bishlakim is also, pasakim is also, pas yisrael is mutter, Gevinas Yisroel is mutter, and then chol yisrael is mutter. So the
This is Lashon Tosefta?
No, I'm just quoting you the halacha. I'm putting them in order. Okay, so if the Lashon Tosefta is a little questionable how to read it. You can look at that, but there's also questionable how to read it. That's why I was going to distract you if I put the whole Tosefta. So he said like this. So the Shach is learning, the Maram Rutenberg learns that the fact that Gevina in the Tosefta is next to the din of Bishul and Pas Yisroel, and even in the wording of Tosefta, it sounds like they're similar, is to say, when the Chachamim made a takanah that Gevinas Akum is asur, they gave it the same structure as they did to the din of Pas Yisroel and Bishul Yisroel. That in those things, Pas and Bishul Yisroel, of course, what makes it kosher is the Yid participating. That's how Pas and Bishul Yisroel get mutter. You don't have to watch anything. There's no treif ingredients. There's no chash of treif ingredients. The only thing is the Yid has to be part of it. The Yid has to be part of the Bishul or the Pas Yisroel. So Gevina was made exactly like those other dinim. But just like Bishul and Pas Yisroel, the Yid has to, when the Yid participates, that makes it kosher. So too, in Gevinas Yisroel, the Chacham made the same takanah. Now, in Pas and Bishul Yisroel, we understand why the Chacham made a takanah, that you have to participate, because there's nothing else to do. What am I doing? Watch it? Watching is ridiculous. There's nothing to watch. we're not Kosher till you put in trade food ingredients. So by that, obviously you have to participate, but the Rambam is learning that when they made the Isra Gevinas Yisroel, when they wanted to make it stronger than the takanah of Chol Yisrael, the way they made it stronger was by saying, don't just watch it to make sure it's kosher ingredients, but participate in the making of it, just like you have to by passing Bishop. Yes.
Over there, I haven't seen the Tosefta. I'll have to wait till Shabbos, but maybe it's important. Pas Akum Aser, Pas Yisrael Mutter. That's the Lashon. That's
the order. Yeah.
So why would they separate in a different halacha? If you have Gevinas Yisroel Mutter, Gevinas Akum Aser, why is it in a different thing? Why isn't it?
When you look at the text, you understand, because halacha zayin is really not about it. It's really a question about whether it's aser or not. Okay, that's why halacha zayin is about it. Whether it's aser, which is the same in the
Mishnah. It doesn't write Gevinas Akum Aser like it does by.
I'll figure it out. Yes.
I'll have to look.
No, I'm saying it's very difficult to determine anything based on this job.
Right, you're not saying it. Okay. So now I have to just tell you something. I have to tell you something.
But Pasuk Bishul makes sense why there shouldn't be actual participation.
Of course it does, because there's nothing else to do.
No, well, even conceptually, because the reasons for Bishul and Pas are because of intermarriage, Kashrus. So there you want to have a hecker of some sort.
Okay.
So you have to be participating. But by hearing
good. That's a different way of saying the same point. It's a different way of saying the same point. You're right. But
it's a different point. It's saying that there's more reason to say it there's a chiluk between Gevina and Pas and Bishul. That chiluk, that the participation should make a difference. By Gevina, but your whole goal is to make sure that it's not treif. So there you really don't need participation as opposed to by the other two. So
I agree with you. Right. The Marmur is obviously learning like this. That, as I said, the Chacham wanted to make the takanah of Gevina stronger than the takanah of Cholav. For Cholav, we know that it's a less serious takanah. So when they made it stronger, the way they made it stronger was by saying you have to do like that Bishul and Pas Yisrael. It doesn't make sense really to have to do it, and doesn't need it, but you have to do it. Now, we have an opposite question, which I don't know the answer to, okay, which is, now that we saw the Tosefta, that says that the way you make Gevinas Yisroel is by having a Yid watch the making of the cheese. How did the Shach know now that owning the cheese is good enough? The way we thought that owning it is good enough is because of a deed. The Mishnah said, Gevina Seihem implies that that's what's aser and this is what's mutter. But now we have a Kosher Tosefta that says that the way you make it kosher is by throwing it in. So we back a little bit with the question, well, who told you that owning it is good enough? Okay,
does it say convert to like Akum making cheese in the basis or something like that?
Say it again?
It's like a Jew making it in basis or something like that.
He does, but how does he know that? Well, who's telling him that when the Tosefta says that the way you do it is by participating, so that we get it? It says if the Yid makes it kosher. So, okay, so it's prepared. It tells you how to do it. So how do you know that owning it is good? The owning it was just like a default. Well, the Mishnah doesn't say anything. It just says a Yid goes cheese. Oh, it must mean that the Yid owns it. Okay. So the back to the Ramah. The Ramah is going to be learning. That.
Oh, you have an answer.
I don't have an answer to this question. No, I don't have a good answer to this question. I don't know how he knows it. Once you've seen the Tosefta, the Shach doesn't mean the Tosefta. He just brings that lots of Rishonim. He brings a number of Rishonim who say his way. The Gemara tells you that if you look at the Marmuttenberg, which is one of the people he brings, this is what his Makar is. But now once you saw this, and now we're back with that question. I don't know the answer to that. Okay. So the
does he quote where the Marmuttenberg is or no?
Sure he does. Yeah.
Oh, you look, okay.
Shin Ein Dal. I just can't find it. I look. I tried. I tried in 2 different prints of it. I can't find it. You know? So I'm sure it's there someplace. I just can't find it. Okay. So the Ramah holds. The Ramah argues on this. The Shach is learning that Gevinas Akum is like Pas and Bishul Akum. It has the same. The way Gevinas Yisroel is like those two. And the Ramah is holding the opposite. The Ramah is holding that Gevinas Akum is like Chol Akum. Okay, just like by Chol Akum, Chol Yisroel is made by Yid watching it. So too, Gevinas Akum is made by Yid watching it. Okay, that's how the Ramah is going to learn. Now, of course, if you looked in the Mishnah in this Tosefta, you see that Gevina is next to Cholav also, right? The Shach says Gevina is next to Pas. It's also next to Cholav, you know. So it's next to both. In the Mishnah, okay, if you look in the Mishnayos, Gevina is only next to Cholav. Okay, if you look, this is the order in the Mishnayos. Okay, Gevina, Cholav, Pas, Bishul. Okay, so if you look in the Mishnayos, the order is next to Chol. So it's not a tremendous riot that the Tosefta, the Gevina is next to Pas, because the Gevina is also next to Chol. You know what I mean? It's like, it goes both ways over here. Okay, so the Rama holds that it's like, the Rama holds like Chol, but as I told you, we said this a couple of times, we said it many times when we did Halach Aleph, that the takanah of Gevinas Akum is stricter than the takanah of Cholav Akum, and that is, by Cholav, the Mishnah says he has to watch it. But we know that other rayas that are as good as watching work also. Okay, the Mishnah said, are you watching it? There's other rayas that could be good as that also. That's what the Chacham Zalman had said. But by Gevina it doesn't work like that. By Gevina, even if the Yid knows bebrivers that they use only kosher rennet, there are all kinds of rayas that he has. Even so, it's not good enough. And the only way to make it kosher, according to Rama, is for you to watch. He has to physically watch them making the cheese. Okay, that's going to play into next time. So what does that mean? So how does that come out as an afkamina between how you make chol of Yisrael and Gevinas Yisroel?
So the whole discussion really is that cheese is a whole different ballgame than the other things, because it has nothing to do with I should say it the other way. It has nothing to do with dancing in a chasana.
Right.
It has to do with trusting the goy with what he's putting in.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with Chol of Yisrael. It has nothing to do with.
So it's in between. It's in between. It's similar to Chol of Yisrael in that it's a concern that someone might put something treif into it. Chol, they might put treif in milk, and Gevina might put treif in it. It's similar to that.
In the milk, it's a theoretical thing.
Okay.
And the cheese, according to what you said a little while ago, it's a mamish thing that they know that it was done.
But and chol,
now that they want to make sure.
I don't agree with that. Chol also, they saw that people were putting in treif milk. There was such a possibility. They were concerned that people were putting in treif milk. They're both concerned people might do that. And so, but it's in between. It's similar of a chashash to cholav, but it's on the level of the takanah. It's more like pas and bishul. Okay, it's more, it has the strictness of those that doesn't just help to know that they're kosher ingredients. Okay, so we're just to summarize where we're off before we leave for next time. The Rama holds the way you make kosher cheese is by the Yid watching it. Okay, he has the Sefer Aguda who says like him. He has a certain. He said the minig is that everyone's making like that. Everyone just watches the cheese. That's good enough. And he says that the logic for what he's saying is, if you watch it, then you know they didn't use treif rennet. So we understand the logic, we understand the riots, and he thinks that the minig, the common minig is scholarship. The Shach doesn't believe it. The Shach says watching it is not good enough. Watching it is just as good as knowing it, and that's not good enough. He says the minig is, you understand the minig wrong. The reason why people are makel by watching the cheese is not because they're watching it. It's because they have a deal to buy the cheese. It's their cheese. The Shach says, and that's why it's mutter. That the minig is not. That's not the Shach. The minig. That's not the Shach in Sefer Aguda. The Sefer Aguda means something else. And in contrast, the Shach brought rayas from a number of poskim who said like him, including some that the Rama himself brought. So he brings a number of rayas from poskim that he's correct. And we saw that some of those people brought a Tesefta who mamish said what the Shach said, that by participating, that's what makes it into Gevinas Yisroel. Okay, so we have this machlokes. And Mitzvah next time is for, wait a second, anything, some more applications of what we just said. Now we have an understanding of what they said, some applications, and of course, the big child of which way do we paskin, like the Shach of the Rama.